wanna say it loud, 'cause someone out there listening. If you're gonna think it, think out loud, 'cause you don't know what you're missing till you let them all in. Oh, oh, oh. Tell them what it's all about. Oh, oh, oh.
You're listening to the Divorce Registry podcast, talking about real people, real issues, and real solutions.
I'm Jonathan Fogel, a family law attorney.
And I'm Amanda Johnson, a family law paralegal. This is the Divorce Registry podcast, where we provide informative, entertaining, and invaluable insights into all aspects of family law. You can reach us at thedivorceregistry@gmail.com, and be sure to follow us on Facebook.
Amanda and I are partners at work and in life. We are both divorced, and we have 5 kids between the two of us. Some call it chaos. We just call it family.
We call it chaos too.
Yeah, you're right.
The signs say you'll be coming up roses soon. All comes back to you. It all comes back to you.
All right, welcome to the Divorce Registry podcast, our first episode. Now you hit your first mistake. You hit the microphone already. No, this is so exciting. I feel like we've been waiting to do this for a long time.
This has been a long time coming, and we're just going to put our seatbelts on, and we're just going to do it.
This is really exciting, though, and I'm excited today because we're going to be talking about something that's really important to both of us, co-parenting and blending families, which we made an attempt at a few years ago to blend our families. We had seen the Brady Bunch growing up and thought, oh, this will be fantastic. What can go wrong with taking 5 kids and putting them all in the same house?
Yeah, plenty.
And I remember that night that we were getting into bed, and you looked at me and you said something to the effect of, my kids and I need to move out.
Oh, it wasn't that harsh. I think I just said, this isn't working for them.
Yes, and that you know what? And at first it hurt my feelings because I thought it was about me and that I had done something wrong. And then I realized that the truth was it was not working for them. It was something that you and I felt like, oh man, we have all this experience. We help all these other people go through divorce and figure out how to do their things, and thought, oh, we can just do it too because it seems easy. And I realized that our kids were really having a hard time with it.
And I think that was us coming from working in the family law industry and feeling like, well, we know how this goes. We see all of our clients go through that. We know we have a handle on this. When nobody does, and what you just have to do is pay attention to how your kids are reacting and what they need.
Right.
It's not about us yet. It
wasn't.
Not.
It definitely was not, and it was the right thing to live separately. And I think they look back at it probably with fonder memories than we do. But
they didn't have to make dinners for,
for 5 people.
7 people.
Yes, and discipline and deal with driving people. And, I think this was before my oldest had his driver's license. I think.
Yeah.
So this was 5 years ago or so.
Yeah.
It seems like, seems like a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, it was hard for us to try to coordinate schedules and get everybody everywhere, and it was too much for us. So, I mean, that blending families is a very difficult thing and something that we want to talk about today and in the future. And if you have topics that you want us to talk about on the Divorce Registry podcast, send them in to our email at thedivorceregistry@gmail.com, or you can send it to us on Facebook on an instant message as well. Is that what's called, instant message or Facebook message?
PM. I don't know.
I don't know what it is. Something private message, whatever it's
Yes,
called. But
yeah,
yeah, that's how you can get a hold of us. And, let us know if there's a topic that you want us to discuss. We're happy to do that. I have to tell you that the last couple of weeks have been kind of tough for me because my oldest went back to college. He's a sophomore, and he goes out of state. And the tough part wasn't so much about him going back to school, which that's always tough to have him leave, and it's sad. But the tough part was when you're divorced and trying to figure out and coordinate that kind of stuff. How is he going to get back to school? He's moving into an apartment. So do we need sheets? Do we need bedding? Do we need, toiletries and groceries and all that kind of stuff? That's hard enough, I think, when you're married to the person and living with them and coordinate with those things. But when the mother of your child is not living with you and you're trying to coordinate all those things, it's really hard.
Yeah, it feels like a whole nother job. I mean, beyond being a parent normally when you're in a household with two adults. But like this week, I came in and had what I like to just call a release of of stress and anxiety in your office
Yes, that's what it was.
or a mental breakdown.
Well, I like the release of anxiety.
After I dropped my daughter off at her new school in 9th grade, and very excited for her, but overwhelmed by making sure that I knew what's going on, that she knew what's going on, that her dad knows what's going on. And we don't, we have a little bit of a lack of direct communication. We communicate very well over email and text, but direct, and it makes it hard. And so it was overwhelming.
Yeah. And I have the opposite. I talk to my kid's mom probably more than I did maybe when we were married. We talk all the time. It's constant communication. And there's times where that's really necessary, and there's times where it is so overwhelming. And there's times where I'm like, you know what? I just want to do it all myself. It'll be so much easier. And then I find myself being resentful because I'm doing it all. And then there's times where like, no, you freaking do it all. I don't want to do any of this. Yeah. And then I feel guilty because I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So that idea of co-parenting is what we want to talk about today. And I'm really excited for our guest here today. Today we have Erin Pash here with us. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. She is an author of a book, and she is the owner of Ellie Family Services. Welcome, Erin. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, guys. I'm super excited.
Now, before we get into the book, I first want to know how to pronounce the name of the book, right? I mean, it's not that I don't read English. The name of the book is How to Stop Freaking the, and then there's a bunch of expletives out, right? It's I can show it on Facebook here. How to Stop Freaking the Expletive Out. So how do you pronounce the name of your book? I want to make sure I get this right.
What's the PG rating of this show, Jonathan?
We can, you know what? We can do whatever you want.
So it really can, and that's kind of the idea, right? It can be whatever you want. I mean, some people say freaking the bleep out, freaking the blank out, freaking the shit out, freaking the fuck out. I mean, really, whatever works. And isn't that such a great micro dynamic of how co-parenting is, right? Like some days it's a bleep, and some days it's I got to go for expletive as hard as I can go because I'm feeling pretty stressed out right now. So it can kind of be whatever hits you in the moment.
I love it. I love it. I want to talk about it later because you have some great advice on how to help people stop freaking out. But before we get into that, I want to just ask kind of a basic question because you hear this term co-parenting all the time. Mm-hmm. What is co-parenting?
Okay, so there's a lot of different ways you could answer co-parenting. You know, kind of the textbooky way, which is kind of how I'll start, is when two parents who are divorced, or maybe never even were married, but share a joint child, whether it be via a biological child or an adopted child, a child that they've identified, they are the parents of, when they're able to work seamlessly or mostly seamlessly together to help, rear this child, right? To help, as my 4-year-old say, grow them up, and it involves somewhat of a casualness. It kind of sounds like what you and maybe your ex-wife have, where you talk a lot, you're willing to be flexible, you're willing to address the issues and kind of talk directly.
So I maybe overstated what I do.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
No, it is a co-parenting, but there's times where it's really frustrating, super hard.
Absolutely. And one of the things I like to say in some of the work that I do with co-parents is kind of together or apart, right? Like parenting is hard. Okay, so adding a layer of co-parenting, it definitely makes it harder. But some of the frustrations really would be existing if you were together or apart, right? And I think that's some of the stuff you guys experience now, right? Like some of it's just regular olds. Hey, we're a couple. We've got kids. Life is busy. We're chaotic. We're starting this really cool podcast, right? Like life is busy. And so some of the stuff, it's helping ground people and remembering that some of the stuff just is. It's not because of what we've done. It really, that guilt that you guys talk about, it really helps peel back some of those layers of that because nobody needs that, right? And so just helping people remember that it's just hard in general is one of the biggest things we can do. And we call that validating people's feelings.
Yes, that's a lot what you do as a therapist is validating feelings.
A lot, right. Every day.
But that's important, I think, to think about that because when people are going through this, and I thought as a family law attorney of over 20-some years of experience, when I went through my divorce, I thought, I know everything. I can deal with this. I can handle all these things that are going on. That's where I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
Because I was so depressed. I was so sad. It was so difficult. And I'm like, if I'm dealing with that, how are people that don't even understand the process itself trying to deal with those things? And so that validation of, you know what, these are okay and you're not alone in this, you know.
Well, and I think one of the biggest things is a lot of people think that all of this stuff is really rational, right? Like, not to get too sciencey here, but to break it down to the basics, we have like 3 parts of our brain. We have like a rational thinking center, which is where all the good stuff is, right? Then there's an emotional center, and then there's their physical center, right? The stuff that runs our body. And so a lot of people, you know, they say, oh, I'm depressed. I don't understand. I feel like I can take this on and tackle this, you know, rationally. I know what to do. But physically and emotionally, you're drained, okay? And so one of the skills that I work on with clients is remembering that they can tap into all the good stuff in their brains as long as they remember to slow down and relax their body and and be willing to kind of have that emotional release, like you're talking about, you know, when you just have to, you know, let it go.
You have to, right?
Yeah, you gotta be like Elsa and let it go.
Yeah, let it go.
Yeah. And so if you guys want, I could the greatest skills that I think is available for co-parents and really all human beings.
Where were you like 5 years ago? That would be great. Yes, share your skills, please.
I was still in grad school 5 years ago. You probably didn't want to hear. And I was going through my own shit, if you will, then.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so share your skills with our listeners.
Okay, so one of the best things ever. So let me scale back a little bit. So we wrote this book about when deep breathing doesn't work, right? And the reason why we wrote this book about when deep breathing doesn't work is because a lot of people are told, oh, just breathe. Okay, and if you're like me, it makes you want to literally punch somebody in the face. I'm like, you shut up. You have no idea what I'm going through. Don't invalidate me.
Right.
My feelings are real, right? Like I go on my whole
It doesn't help
rant.
when they go, I understand what you're feeling, and just breathe. That doesn't help.
Yeah, it doesn't help. And
Yeah.
it's funny because telling yourself to relax is actually a rational brain thing. When we're all freaked out and stressed out, it's in our body and our emotional center. So you're like speaking 2 different languages. You can hear it, but you're like, oh my God, you're stupid. You don't even understand. You're not speaking my language. And so what we actually have to do is we have to relax the body. So I went to a training not that long ago, and he described something that us therapists learn usually in the process of grad school or something about the body, the mind body, you know, and all that stuff. And he explained it too, and then added my Erin Pash flair to it. And it's really, I've been working a lot with it with clients lately, and it's been resonating. So just a little background is we have this nerve in our body called the vagus nerve, and it's not Viva Las Vegas. It's
That works too, though.
That does, right? I know.
Vegas can be very
hashtag, right? Viva Las
stress-releasing.
Vegas,
Yeah.
VAGUS.
What happens in that nerve stay in that nerve? Is that the
Exactly.
Okay.
Actually, no. What happens in that nerve radiates through your entire body.
Okay.
So it's actually located at the base of your spine. And it kind of wraps around like this, okay? And there's muscles right around this vagus nerve. And when we're actually pretty much all mammals, when they're sensing a threat, the muscles around this vagus nerve tighten, and they send signals all the way up to our brain that says, whoa, I'm experiencing a threat. So when you're talking to an ex-spouse and they're saying something that might be arduous, or you might not be peachy and like, oh, very passive-aggressive Minnesota, like, how's the weather today, right? Your vagus nerve is the muscles around that are starting to squeeze, saying, whoa, 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 is she going to threaten me, right? And this can go off with our kids too, right? Like this, when we're protecting ourselves.
So it's
or
not
young.
necessarily a physical threat. It can be that kind of just that emotional threat too.
But but our physical body can't tell the difference, right?
Sure.
So it's a threat.
Right.
Our rational brain can be like, oh, she's not threatening. I could stalk her right now, or him right now, right? Like, which please don't do.
Yes, please. We're
Please
not
don't ever.
advocating
We
that.
do not support any amount of violence. But it's not a real threat. It's likely a perceived threat,
Right.
but our body cannot tell the difference. And so deep breathing and all of that stuff, that actually lives in the rational part of our brain, but when we're activated in our threat center, we have to get in our physical body. And so some of the skills that we learned is we got to learn how to relax the muscles around this vagus nerve, which I am like really a 12-year-old boy. So when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, we have to relax our butthole. Right?
That's where the vagus nerve is.
And that's
down
where the
there.
vagus
Okay.
nerve is.
What did you just say?
I said butthole on camera. I did. And so it just resonates with people. And so there's a couple of skills that I can teach everybody here right now.
Wait, we're gonna really do this.
We're gonna do this.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna relax our vagus nerves.
All right, let's try it. All
And-
right, let's do it.
And the
Okay.
group of muscles down there is like our pelvic floor muscles,
Okay.
right? So if you guys have ever done Kegels, which
Sure.
you know, it's kind of like if you're peeing muscles that you use. I hear it's painful for dudes. Girls can kind of do
It
this
is painful.
because we're kind of
Yeah,
awesome.
you're looking at me. Yes, it's
Yeah,
painful.
right.
Yeah, it's not.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to do
so,
that.
So some of the ways to do this. Okay, so the first thing you can do, which is really cool, is instead of telling yourself to deep breathe, you can force yourself to deep breathe. So I'm gonna have you guys interlock your fingers like
Okay.
this. So interlock your fingers together, kind of like an interlocking motion, and then throw your hands behind your head like you're relaxing.
Okay, hit the microphone there. Okay, yeah.
Okay. And what this does is, even in your natural state, is this forces what we would call diaphragmatic breathing. It opens up up your chest. So like I'm taking deep breaths by accident. I'm not doing it on purpose. In fact, I'm trying to talk. So it's kind of challenging, but this is like step one.
Okay.
Okay. So if any of your kids or you're just kind of stressed out, the best thing you can do is put your hands over your head like this. And this is starting to send just more oxygen through your body and telling that physical body to just like, hey, I'm not actually dying here. I'm not running. I'm not deep breathing. I'm not using those rescue airway stuff that I would do like if I'm really threatened. And so we're kind of tricking our bodies so that we can do some of the other stuff.
Stay like this?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay.
Just for like a second.
Just for a little longer.
Just a little longer. You guys stay like that.
I'm feeling,
Okay, so
yeah, I'm feeling super relaxed.
this is so great. I know. Wouldn't you just like to kick your feet up and then?
Yes.
Yeah,
Isn't
I'm
it
gonna
kind
put
of
my arms down now.
Isn't that kind of amazing though that this is kind of like what
Actually,
we consider
it did. I
a
felt it.
relaxing
Yeah, for
position?
sure.
Okay, so now let's get to the butthole stuff. Sorry, I can't help myself.
I love
I
it.
can't help myself.
That's why you're here.
Right.
That's why it's a podcast.
It's a right, and not a formal interview.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you guys two really quick skills that people can do, and you guys can teach your clients this. I mean, how many times have you been in a mediation where clients are just losing their shit, and that you just need to give them a quick skill? It's like I'm not a therapist here, right? I can't like walk them through all of this stuff,
Yeah.
but I can sure as hell teach them how to do a skill that'll help them calm them down. Okay, so one of them would be squeezing those Kegel muscles as tight as you can for 10 seconds. Okay, so squeeze,
Okay,
squeeze,
hang
squeeze,
on.
squeeze. Yeah,
I'm gonna look at the camera while I do this.
dramatic.
Yes,
camera.
very dramatic.
Yes, dramatic. Squeezing the Kegel muscles. And then I want you to hold that in as hard as you can for 10 seconds. And then I want you to release it over 20 seconds.
Oh my goodness, 20 seconds. That seems like an eternity.
Should I count in a super?
No, that'll make me even more stressed.
I'm touching the microphone with my mouth. Okay. And so what happens when you're doing this is when you count out for 20, it's kind of like counting out a deep breath for a long time. You're letting them expand. And what's happening is it's relaxing that pelvic floor. Okay. So that's a really, really quick skill. There are people who are professionals at teaching people how to relax their pelvic floor muscle. I'm going to give you one more little bit more in-depth skill that only takes about 30 seconds to do. Okay.
All right.
So the skill involves, closing your eyes. I'll coach you through this.
Okay,
I'll make sure
all right.
okay. And so what you're going to do is I want you to reach your hands under your butt.
Excuse me?
Yes, I want you to find your butt bones.
The show is
Oh,
gonna be
okay.
so
I got it.
risque.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I know. I didn't
Yes,
know we were
so
going to get this crazy.
I didn't know either, but we're rolling with it, and it really does work.
Okay, so I'm
Okay.
sitting on my hands.
Yep. So feel your butt bones. Like you
Okay.
should find four corner or
Yep.
two corners. Sorry, not four.
Yep.
Okay, and then take your hands out
All right.
and look for your hip bones. So in the front.
Okay.
Okay. So now I want you guys to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine drawing lines to make a square to connect those 4 points. So butt bone to butt bone to hip bone to hip bone to butt bone. You guys got your square?
Yes.
Okay, so now I am going to count this time, and I'm going to count for 10 seconds.
Okay.
And over that 10 seconds, I want you to think about that square getting as big as possible. Okay, meaning as big as this room outside your body. I want you to think about making that square and releasing those muscles so big on those 4 corners. Okay?
All righty.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what you guys just did when you did that is you started training your brain and body to work together to relax the muscle groups around this vagus nerve. And what this does is it just naturally calms us down.
Yeah, honestly, I felt like kind of my legs kind of like almost like a tingly, kind of like just a relaxing.
Well, and I think
Feeling.
I'm sure it has some physical, but it also just taking your mind and putting it into focus on
box.
something else, such things as in your book or that.
Mm-hmm.
It removes you from the over obsessing of what you're dealing with at the
Right,
moment.
and it forces you to get back in your body. Your body is so resilient, you guys, right? Like it knows what to do. The problem is our brain is overpowerful. And it overwhelms us, and it tells us we have to be, puddle jumping thoughts, all over the place and expecting the worst. And we're trying to triage this threat perception. But the reality is our body knows what to do. We just have to let it. Right. So that is some skills. I mean, we're already calmer. Can you notice?
I know.
We're,
I do feel calmer.
we're like less. We're
Do
just
I sound calmer?
like where's the beach and the ocean?
Yeah.
And just the relaxation.
But I think that's true. I mean, I agree with you, Amanda, that if it's that idea of if you can envision something outside of what you're dealing with, right? Which is great for this. I mean, this book is fantastic.
It's
One of my favorite ones in here.
Yeah.
Is
and it's a very fun,
it's a fun book.
simple commentary on
I love
it.
this one. This is an advice that you have in your book on how to stop freaking out. Is find an
You can
animal,
say it.
watch it attentively, narrate its life for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's just a tool for distraction. That's actually really fun. You guys can do it with your pets, but I actually prefer to do it with outdoor animals. If you've ever tried to narrate an ant's life for 3 minutes, you'd be surprised at how creative and how far that can go.
I think they made a movie about that.
Did they? Oh, yeah, that's right. But I think 2, actually.
Yeah, 2.
Sorry, I have little kids. I watch like Disney movies all day long, every day.
So can I ask you, you guys do a lot over at Ellie Family
yeah.
Services. I looked at your website. I was like, oh my gosh, they have like so many things going on between teen art therapy, family transition groups for transgender issues. I mean, there's the co-parenting stuff. For our listeners regarding when they're going through a divorce or just a custody matter, what can they expect when they reach out to you? If they decide together that they want to do co-parenting therapy, they reach out to you. What are the steps? What happens there? What meetings?
Yeah, so at Ellie, we do things a little different, right? And our goal, right, like our millennial little slogan is #FillTheGap. And Kyle and I are my co-owner. We started as social workers. And one of the things for the government, right? And we were just finding gaps all over the place in how can we be better, right? We're young, we have lots of energy. We're like, we want to do some of this stuff. I am also a step parent. I was actually, it's kind of a unique lens. I met my husband when I was 20 and he had a 3-year-old. And so when I'm working with a lot of families, especially in co-parenting, I really help align and explain that I was dad's side first, right? So I might be a mother now, and that came 5 or 6 years later, but I was dad's side first. So I understand, right? It's that validation and that true empathy for I understand how challenging this is, including the dynamics of what both sides might be experiencing. And so what you can expect when you come into Ellie is we do personalized referring, meaning so when you call our office and you say, hey, this is who we are, we ask lots of questions because one of the biggest barriers to getting therapy is finding the right fit. Okay, so we make sure that we talk to people and make sure that they find the right fit through our referral coordinator. Once we find the right fit, we have the therapist reach out to you. Right? So they reach out to the client and they get to talk to them and they get to address some of their fears, right? Like they get to proverbial, calm their butthole over the phone and be like, this is going to be okay. We're going to help you. And so when people come in for co-parenting, we break it down really, really easy and we do some co-parenting packages. We also do lots of family therapy. We also have therapy that's covered by insurance, all this other kind of stuff. But when somebody comes in strictly for co-parenting, we spend really, really dedicated time to really understand each parent's story. A lot of times when you go in and you talk to mediators and all of that, you kind of have the 20-minute rundown of where you're at. We spend 2 or 3 sessions individually each so that each parent understands and builds a relationship with the therapist so that when we ask you to do something outside of your comfort zone as a part of co-parenting and doing stuff for your kids, you've got an established relationship and we really care.
They trust you.
Right.
Yeah, we develop trust in that therapeutic relationship. So those are just a couple of the ways that, Ellie does stuff. And I know a lot of my colleagues in the cities do it this way as well. And what we're finding is just it's a best practice. People need to be validated. It's funny because we actually start learning problem-solving skills in kindergarten.
Sure.
Most co-parents have robust problem-solving skills.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the feelings and the body stuff that they have to work through. And you're talking to somebody who was like a pre-med person originally or like heavy into science, and I went the complete social science way. I like science. If you can't explain it to me, I don't believe you. So we spend a lot of time explaining to people why this stuff is neurological, why this stuff is physiological, so that instead of taking 6 months for them to buy in that it works, we try and educate them and coach them and let them know that, hey, you can do this. And it really, the hope, right? That's the biggest thing that they need. And so you get them, as soon as you can get them hooked that this is a hopeful process, they're in it and they succeed.
Well, let me ask you this, because I hear this other term, right? We talked a lot about co-parenting, but I also hear this term parallel parenting, right? And what's the difference between those two things? I mean, co-parenting versus parallel parenting.
So that's a really good question because people confuse these two things a lot. I explained co-parenting earlier. So parallel parenting is really, really, really a good second choice. Okay, and the reason why we call it a good second choice is because co-parenting would be ideal.
Sure.
If we can get moms and dads and co-parents working together on a day-to-day basis, making time, almost creating a informal friendship, that's what's best because then their kids see that, right? And so there's this reactive, I can see my parents get along, I can have a big blended family, and it causes them less distress. Parallel parenting is a really good second choice for parents who are stuck in that emotional body. Parents who cannot get along, we try and encourage them to get on this parallel track. So, and that's just what it is. Think about it that way. Co-parenting would be meshing, going back and forth, creating this weave of kind of like interweaving lives, including some personal stuff. You know, you'd be able to call your co-parent and be like, I'm really stressed out at work. Can you take the kids tonight?
Sure, and that's
Okay.
what I do. I mean, and even with my kid's mom, and we celebrate birthdays together. We'll go to
Yes.
to their sporting events, and we sit next to each other
Yep.
because we feel that's really important for the kids to see that not only are we a united front, but I think it's good modeling for just behavior.
Right. And we're allowed to have conflict or disagreements with people and still agree on enough stuff.
Right.
Right. The funniest part or the most ironic part is that we were usually married to our co-parents. And so nobody gets married to get divorced. There's been a study. Very few people. We could have a whole nother podcast on the mental health attached to
Yeah.
people who get married to get
Right,
divorced.
right.
But yeah, I mean, it's just one of these things that there are enough common denominators for you guys to decide to have kids together, which means there's enough stuff that you guys can, save face and get along with and talk together. Even if it's a little more superficial, it's great for kids. Parallel parenting would be when parents really can't get along. A lot of times we see this in families who have experienced really significant domestic abuse and stuff that, it's kind of like, again, you can validate it's really hard for those people to try and get along. And so you create a plan that says, here's our joint objectives, right, for these kiddos. Here's what's important. And we kind of stay on a parallel track. Communication is usually much more business-like. We talk about that business-like communication. It's usually emailed. It's usually, maybe once a year they meet with a mediator and talk about here's our goals for the next year. But they really need somebody to help moderate those discussions. And it's a lot less informal. And what we've learned is that for parents who are in families who are really high conflict, parallel parenting, like I said, is just a really great second choice. It helps build resiliency. It helps kids not have so much shame and guilt when the worst thing could ever be is when parents talk badly about other parents. You have to remember kids identify as being 50% that other person.
Sure.
So when you attack your co-parent, you attack your child.
Yeah.
And so parallel parenting is a great second choice. I think everybody, I'm going to redact. I think almost everybody can achieve co-parenting if they learn some of that mind-body stuff.
Yeah.
They can. Where their bodies are physically capable of it, but you need to be ready to learn.
Sure.
And it's not natural, and we aren't just born knowing how to relax all of those muscles and all that stuff. We have to be taught.
Yeah.
We are taught. We are born knowing how to sense threats.
Well, and I have to tell you, I mean, what you said earlier about the business thing is that I had a judge years ago. This is maybe 15, 20 years ago when I was practicing, and the judge looked at both parents when we were in the courtroom, and it was an ugly custody dispute. I mean, it was tough. It was really hard, and there was a lot of issues going on. And the judge said to them, because we did end up reaching an agreement, which was good. And the judge said to them, he said, look, you guys don't have to be friends anymore, right? But you still are a family. You're still the mom, you're still the dad, and you still have these kids. And now you are in a business relationship. Your business is to raise good children and good citizens of the world. And you need to do together in some way. You need to find a way to do that so the kids can see good modeling behavior, and your business now is to, raise those good children. I always thought that was a really good way to look at it.
I couldn't agree more, and I really love it when judges include that extra little snippet. I wish there would be more orders for follow-up family counseling because it works, right? Like I'm living proof, it works. Yeah. And when people get a little nudge to go to it, it really helps, them invest in the process because after the divorce, they're kind of like, oh, I can breathe now. I can move on with my life. And that first year post-divorce is hard.
Yeah.
Really, really hard financially, emotionally, relationally, interpersonally. But if they can learn some of those skills and how to do that job and get a buddy, a support partner, which is what I call myself, is that accountability partner, they do better. They just do. It's funny because like you were just saying, I tell families all the time who come into my office, when divorces are ending of marriages, not endings of families.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, look, I hate to cut you off.
I know.
But
We're not gonna have enough time.
Never had enough time.
Never.
And I appreciate you so much coming in today.
Thank
This was
you.
fantastic. And if people
awesome.
want to learn more about
Erin.
Ellie Family Services and
Yes.
about Erin, they can go to our Facebook page, and we'll post your information
And
about you
don't
there.
forget to relax your vagus nerve. Look
Yes.
I didn't say butthole that time.
Yeah.
But I just did.
I like butthole.
It was fun. Our first episode.
Yes. Yay, we did it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Erin.
you.
The information in this podcast was for general purposes only. The information provided was not legal advice or a legal opinion. You should seek the advice of legal counsel of your own choice before acting upon any information from this podcast. Contacting us by phone or any other means does not establish an attorney-client relationship.